Greetings, millionaires and future millionaires. I'm Beene, the co-founder of Pilot Legacy Private Equity Group, a veteran Air Force officer, former F-16 pilot, and 20-year real estate investor. If you're interested in real estate, I've got a topic today that I think you'll find interesting. I'm going to communicate this information in 5 minutes or less once we start talking about real estate cycles, and I hope this information helps you become a wiser investor and a better real estate millionaire. Today's topic, we're going to dive deeper into real estate cycles. And we're going to talk about where I believe we are in today's cycle and why that cycle is important to understand so that you can execute the correct real estate strategy. Before I do that, let me kind of backstep a little bit and set up the foundation of what we're going to be talking about. There's 4 generally accepted real estate cycles. That's the expansion phase, that's the hypersupply, that's the economic downturn, and that's the recession. So those are the 4 areas that we're going to be talking about today, and we're going to dig specifically into where I believe we are so that you can make the right investment decisions. But before I talk about specifically that, I'd like to mention why this is important information for you to understand and learn. And there's 4 reasons that I believe this is important. The number 1 reason is we want to pair our investment strategies with the correct real estate cycle or the real estate market. Number 2 is we want to make an adjustment, or we want to make sure that our holding period and our exit strategy aligns correctly with our real estate cycle. The third thing is we want to establish good expectations for investors and our investment. In other words, as the prices decline through a recession, we're not really expecting the highest prices. But as prices grow through an expansionary cycle, then that's where we may want to make an adjustment and sell our property with expectations of higher value. And the fourth thing is we want to time our capital improvements. In other words, if we have a property that needs improvements and we're going to implement some of those in expectation of higher rent increases, well, then we need to recognize when that would be the best time to execute. So those 2 things paired together are important foundation elements of today's discussion. All right, where are we today? And let me see if I can communicate that briefly, succinctly, so that you can become a better investor. Here we go. The stages of the real estate market, as this slide shows, I believe, and most experts generally recognize, we are between stages 3, which is hypersupply, and stages 4, recession. Why do they think that, and why is that the point that they think we are? Well, each of these cycles has different symptoms and different components. So let me go over what hypersupply is and recession symptoms are so that you can understand that. Well, in hypersupply, that's where the supply of housing and the demand of housing is in equilibrium, and then it begins to tip so that there's more supply in the market than there is demand. In other words, vacancies begin to increase, rents as a result of more vacant units begin to decline, or the rent growth flattens out or may even go negative. So those are the late symptoms of a hypersupply market. As we transition into the bottom portion of a recessionary market, that's where the supply, the amount of housing in the marketplace exceeds the demand for it. Vacancies are typically higher, rent growth is higher, and as an operator, we have to decrease rents, or we have to add additional rent concessions or rent adjustments to maintain our occupancy. So most professionals or economists believe that the market currently is between phases 3 and phases 4 of the North Texas market. And let me also add that each market has a different real estate cycle. For example, the real estate cycle in the city of New York right now may be completely different than it would be in the city of Austin, Texas, or other areas. So it's very geographic dependent. All right, having said that, and having mentioned the fact that we are between hypersupply and recession, what does that mean to you as a real estate investor, and what strategies do you want to capitalize on? So if we're between those 2 points, let me go over what I believe is the best strategies for that hyper supply, and especially in the last stages of hyper supply, is we want to have, or we want to purchase, a core asset. A core asset is a high performance asset that has well occupied, credit worthy tenants. And we want to hold those tenants in place with a flat or negative rent growth so that we can ride out the final stages of hypersupply. We can successfully endure the recession. And then as we get into the next phase of expansion, we can adjust our exit strategy, or we can adjust our business model. We want to be very careful in the hypersupply point, that end stage, of buying a value add or opportunistic project with the expectation of buying that project and increasing rents, because we've already talked about the supply and demand, the concessions is really going to compromise the ability for us to go in, make improvements, and then lease that up successfully. So make sure you understand that. And then as we get into that phase 4, which is the recessionary period, that is the best time, okay, to buy an opportunistic project at a discount. And sometimes at a steep discount. A lot of times we can find foreclosures during that time, or projects that have some type of financial cliffhanger, if you will. So that strategy, though, of opportunistic value add during the recession period is very important to consider price, and also be a well-capitalized, patient owner. In other words, plenty of money to ride the recession out, or capital, and then also having the patience to recognize this period may be a while before we see some type of return. So that's where I believe we are today. At Pilot Legacy Private Equity Group, we are in close attention to where that real estate cycle is, and we are constantly refining our strategies so you as an investor can capitalize and maximize your return based on what we talked about today, specific to local markets. My time's almost up on this topic. I hope that was helpful to you to understand our investment strategy and understand where we are in the real estate cycle, so that you can make wiser investment decisions and you can become a better millionaire. If you have any questions about financial strategy or about the real estate cycle, please reach out to me. Or if you'd like to learn specifically the ideas and the projects that Pilot Legacy is working on, then again, I'd love to help you reach your financial goals. Pilot-legacy.com is our website, or you can reach me at lane.beene@pilot-legacy.com. I'm looking forward to helping you become a better millionaire.